Welcome to the Lazy Animator's Guide to Animating in Unreal Engine. Yes, my name is MXBell and I am a lazy animator, and I always have been, and I cheat a lot. And today I want to show you my 4 top tips how to cheat at animation in Unreal Engine. My name's MXBell and I work on all these things, and I'm here to teach you how to make films in Unreal Engine. Welcome to Realtime Workflows. This week I did a talk for Epic Games' Animation Office Hours where I talked about my layered approach to MetaHuman animation. As part of the process, I recorded a backup video in case anything went wrong on the day, but nothing did go wrong on the day, so now this is the backup video. Yeah, so look, I don't like to get involved too deeply in animation. I would rather just sketch my ideas in and then leave it with somebody else. But I do like to animate on top of motion capture. I find it gives you a better sense of physicality and it gets you there. It gets you there faster, I think. So let's just dive in and see what I'm talking about. Incidentally, you can see on my screen, and this is the Locodrome MetaHuman picker, so we can use this to pick objects. So that's it. That's just a bonus tip. That's not one of the tips, but you can get that for free on the Fab Marketplace. So the first tip is don't start on an empty control rig. Right, that way lies madness. Get rid of it and put an idle in. So animation, idle. So an idle will look something like this. All right, we'll get them, and we get them from websites such as Mixamo. All right, now I've got a whole video on getting animations into Unreal Engine from Mixamo. You can find that up here. I don't need to go into it now, but that's where you get them from, and that is where this one's from. And so if I was to be animating this character, I would just animate on top of this because it's adding a bunch of animation underneath. So let's say all I wanted to do was have this character turn around. I would just bake this to control rig. I'm going to uncheck filter and go MetaHuman control rig. We get these options. We hit create. All right, and now we've got our control rig. We can get rid of the animation. We don't need that anymore. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create an animation layer. So we're going to come to anim layers, and we're going to grab all our controls under here. And we're going to go new layer. All right, and then we're gonna grab our base layer and we're gonna hide that track. And now we've just got our basically all our controls on, and we can just go and animate what we want. If we come back to the start and we click all the controls again, we select all the objects. We can hit this button here, which sets the default pose, which is our first keyframe. And then from then on, we are just animating on top of this animation. So, for example, what we might do is turn him around like that, you know, and he's going to turn around. And obviously, we would do more better animation than that, but that's kind of the gist of it. Okay, and he's still moving. He's still got all that motion underneath, so that actually, you know, you've got this kind of element of keep alive in there. Let's animate his head as well, just to make sure we've got, and his head can lead and get there kind of first. So we're just animating on top of animation that's already there. Okay, so that's tip 1. Tip 2, use animation layers to tidy up motion capture takes. Now this is more for motion capture that you've recorded as opposed to clips that you've got off of, such as Mixamo. So let's, for example, take this one. If I went to swing. So here's a mocap clip that we recorded for this astronaut, and he's coming along here and he's moving along the rails. I've got my rails in here. Look, he's moving along those rails, and then he grabs hold of a perpendicular post. So let me just add my, but what happens is if I add my perpendicular post, bring it down here. When he grabs it around here. Look, grab. There's the grab. Now it may be that on the day the post that we were using kind of moved or something, or you know, maybe the mocap's slightly off, but what happens is that he doesn't stay anchored to it. All right, then what I want to do is plant that hand firmly where it needs to be. So again, let's come in here and let's bake to control rig. You're going to be doing a lot of bake into control rig if you use my methods, because I love doing it. Bake to control rig. And what we're going to do is we just need to come to the start. We just need to check what we've got in terms of IK and FK and spaces. Now, ordinarily, FK is for arms and IK is for legs, but because this is an astronaut, he's walking effectively with his hands. So we're going to come in and we're just going to take these, come into the global control. We'll find the leg and arm switches here in a group of 4. We'll just get rid of them, grab them all and get rid of them. And then come back to the start and we're going to change, basically invert them. So legs go to FK and arms go to IK. So that's great. And then the other thing that I want to do is I'm going to set my, just if we check how our IK behaves by selecting the body control, what we'll find is if we move it and then undo, we see how the IK effect is not affected by the body, which is good for this one, for what I intend to do, but not good for this one. So for this one, I'm actually just gonna, just for the sake of this, I probably would leave it on IK and I would do some space changing, but for now I'm just gonna leave it on FK. Which arm is it? Left arm. I'll just take it off and leave it on FK and I don't have to worry about it. So we're just gonna worry about the red arm, the right arm, and make sure it gets plants on here and stays on there. So to do that, again, I'm going to use animation layers, but I'm not going to use one that's got all the controls on this time. I'm just going to be selective. I'm going to grab our IK control and our body control, and I'm going to come to layers, and I'm going to, let me delete that last layer that we had. So we create a new layer now, and we'll call this adjustment. And what we want to do is we want to set a keyframe where we were happy. So we were happy when it comes into here and he grabs it, right? He grabs it there. Now, if I was cleaning this up properly, I'm obviously conscious of his helmet and how big it is, and I might do a bit more work, but again, I'm not overly worried about that right now. That's where I think we're happy. And then he spins around here and ends up here. All right, so cool. So I'm going to move both these controls now and just position them here, such that we are in a little bit better position. So grabs it and he ends up roughly in the right place, okay? Maybe by here, maybe we should be kind of here. You can kind of get a little bit wild doing this, because obviously like here, we should be a bit more like that. Just stick a few in just to guide it. So that's better, that's already better, but we can lock it down even better than that by using an override animation layer on this control, on the IK control. So I'm going to grab that one again, and I'm going to go new layer, and I'm going to go hand OVRD, which is just my shorthand for override. And on the frame where we're happy, so where he grabs it here. Now we would do some, obviously we'd do some animation on the hands and the hand shape and fingers and stuff, but we're not going to worry about that right now. So where this is right now, we're going to switch this to override. Basically what this is doing is just basically saying like, look, this is the keyframe where this is where it was when it's set to override, and that's where it's staying now. We're not going to change it. So, okay, great. So what we can do now is we can use this and we can set a key now where we're on. So we're good there. We clasp his hand around it. We can now set a keyframe, and I'm gonna down here, and when we get to our point where we thought we were good, which is when he kind of comes around with his other hand, we can then, we're just going to rotate this around and just adjust it so that it's broadly staying where we want it to stay on the rail. Just tidy it up a little bit there like that. So now he grabs hold of it, and this is the layer that's providing all the animation to that object. So it's just sticking put really nicely, and we can see there where it is. And that's all we need to do. And now all we're going to do is keyframe this layer on and off. So what we're saying is it lands there, and we're going to set, once it's connected, we definitely want it to be weight to be set to 1. So we'll do that, and then just beforehand, we will set this weight to 0. So now the animation is where it was, and as the weight animates on, it goes towards the override layer and grabs hold, and now the hand is stuck on really nicely according to our the animation that we've put on, so that override layer. And then once that stops, we can then add another keyframe to bookmark the section where we're fully overridden, and then we can just keyframe it off again, and we're back to where we were. Now, that means obviously things are going to get a little lumpy again, but it's not too bad. And there we are. And now, just with a couple of animation layers, what we've done is, let's look at it from up here. What we've done is we've created this animation where the hand actually managed to grab hold of that thing, and it feels a lot more realistic and a lot more anchored. Okay, so that is using animation layers to tidy up motion capture. My next one is using idles and mixing your own idles. Let's come into a fresh file for this. I'll turn off my rails. Right, so first thing, whenever you're doing with any of my methods, just get rid of that control rig straight away. I don't use naked control rigs, blank control rigs, so just get rid of them. So I'm going to want a couple of motion capture clips, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to blend them in order to create an entirely new one, right? So I need a better floating astronaut-y idle, and to do that, I'm going to grab from Mixamo. I'm going to grab if I type in floating. Now there are no astronaut animations in here, but there is treading water like that. Bit much, obviously. There's this one that feels a little bit better. So I'll download that one, and I'm going to just throw it in here. Now again, there's another video on how to import Mixamo. My recommended Mixamo settings, basically, I tend to download everything for this Adam character, who's this guy, and because he's at the top of the list when it comes to the skeletons, and you just pick him, and then all the Mixamo animations are basically set up to be for him. And then we've got him in here now. It's as simple as that. I just dragged it in, and then we're going to retarget, and we're going to choose our astronaut, and we'll retarget treading water and go export. And I tend to put my Mixamo retargeted animations into this folder. You can put them wherever you want, and I tend to put them with the suffix of RTG so that I know that they've been retargeted from something else, and it gives them a different name to the other one. That's just my way of doing things. And so in here now we can add animation, water, treading water, and now we've got this treading water animation, and that was literally, what was that, 30 seconds from me looking at it on the browser and downloading it and bringing it in. Like it's really quick. Okay, so this is obviously way too much, but I need something to blend it with, and so let's bring in that idle that we looked at earlier. Let's go add another animation. Go idle. Damn it, idle. And we'll bring this breathing idle in. Okay, so now when we have two animations on top of each other, we get this, because they're blending together. And what happens when treading water ends, it'll snap to the breathing idle, all right? Now, in order to make a loopable one of these, we need to make sure that they both loops end at the same time, right? Now, we can see here that our breathing idle is quite long, and actually, probably our treading water anim is way fast for an astronaut, right? An astronaut does not need to do that. So I'm going to use the control key. I'll make sure you can see the clock symbol. That means it's scaling. And then let's come over here and we want to just scale it so that it neatly butts up with that. And now these two are two loopable clips that are the same length. Now, if I set that timer to bookend these, the in and out points, we can see that it loops perfectly. All right, so great. And now what I'm going to do, see, that looks like a much better loop. But the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just tone down the treading water. I'm going to set it to like 0.5. So it does 0.5 of the work. There's half of the values. Now that we've got that, we don't want it in this level sequence. We actually just want to bake that out. So what I would tend to do now is I'm going to right click and I'm going to bake animation sequence. And I'm going to stick that in here where we're doing this work. Here, this one. So we'll call this Astro Loop. Okay. And you get this box and just to export, that's fine. So now I can come to a fresh level sequence. This one, for example. Again, get rid of the control rig and add my animation Astro Loop. And here it is as an animation sequence that I can now, as I said in the first tip, I can now animate on top of. Okay, so it's just a nice kind of ambient animation for an astronaut to animate on top of. Now, final one, number 4. Every animation clip you've got in here, so for example, Astro Loop, can be controlled by an independent linked level sequence. When I found this out, I was blown away, right? So to do this, we're gonna double click it. And we're gonna come to this sandwich bar up here and go edit in sequencer and then bake it to control rig. Again, every single one of these tips involves baking to control rig. Hit bake to control rig. And then when we open this back up now, we're gonna see, when we close this down, we're gonna see that we've got a brand new level sequence. Look, it says driving Astro Loop. And if we come and look at where driving Astro Loop is, it is inside this folder alongside the Astro Loop, right? This is a linked animation to that animation sequence. And so I can come into here and go to details. I can pick my skeletal mesh that I would normally drive it with. So we can come down and go to Tom Outfits. There he is. All right. And now I can make changes in here. For example, let's say I don't want to have his arms, let's say, so high. We can grab the 2 arms. We can go animation layer. We've got an adjustment layer there. Let's set a key. Let's bring these arms in, like so. And that is now a permanent change to that animation. If we come back to here, we can see on Astro Loop, those arms are now in. So come here, do that. Okay. So this is a permanent linked animation clip that drives that animation sequence. So wherever you use this animation in your project, you can change it once and it will proliferate throughout your project, and you can keep refining it. So it's really good for mocap refinement, where you can go, I just want to use this piece of mocap even if it's unrefined, and then I'm going to come back and I can refine it at the source, and all those refinements will then proliferate out through the project. If anyone's wondering what the question marks, pluses, and particularly this cross is about, that's because I've got revision control on, and this is not the first time I did this little spiel, and these just indicate that I've already deleted this file once, that's all. So nothing to worry about there. So that has been lazy animator tips from a lazy animator, and I hope that was useful, and let me know if it wasn't. Well, no, let me know if it was, I guess. Either way, you know where the comments are. Like, subscribe, and all that stuff, and I'll catch you down the road.